Opened up my computer that morning at 8:30. By 11:30, all my papers were prepared. I'm out of here. After 37 years at the same job, I had enough. I walked away. At 60 years old, I quit. But the truth is, quitting didn't happen overnight. It took years of things building up before I finally said, enough. To understand the impact of that moment, I have to take you back to when I first started with the federal government. 1979. I was fresh out of Michigan, came to Chicago, escaping an abusive marriage. I was a hot, smoking mess. I had no clothes, I had no money, I had no job. My aunt let me come there and stay until I got on my feet. Well, I knew nothing about a government job, but my cousin told me that if I went and took the civil service exam, I could get in with the government. I understood that that was a job that had longevity. So I said, okay, I got nothing to lose. I'll go down here and take the exam. So I took the exam and got in, got my interview, and I started as a clerk typist. Now, that job was very important at that time because it meant my getting on my feet. But the job was, okay, let me say this. I started at a clerk typist, probably making $10,000 a year. But back in 1979, that didn't sound as bad as it does in 2026. But as I said, it meant getting stabilized and getting some clothes for my back. So it wasn't a bad job. I got started there and I did pretty well. Now, it was really important to me because you have a year before you are considered career. So in other words, in that year, if anything doesn't work out, then they can just outright fire you. But if you make it through that year, then you can become permanent. And back then, it took an act of Congress to get rid of you. So it would have been very stabilizing. So you have to understand that at the time that I got that job, I was back and forth between Chicago and Detroit, going back and forth to court because I was trying to get my kids moving on to the point at hand here. And so they were very flexible with me in that year. In that year, I had multiple hospitalizations. I came to Chicago with a nervous breakdown. I was, like I said, I was an emotional mess. And with that running back and forth and being sick all the time, they could have fired me, but they didn't. They kept me on. I got career permanent. Just the fact that they put up with me in that first year being a mess and sick all the time was major. But when I did begin to move up, then I began to get more responsibilities and have more autonomy to attack things that had been done and get them done. So I won a lot of awards and everything too. So leading up to the definitive moment, a few things happened. One thing that happened was I was able to transfer back to Michigan. I had been in Chicago for 11 years, and my husband had gone to prison. And so I was thrown into all this economic turmoil, couldn't afford to live where I was, wound up in a roach-infested place. And my mother told me that I needed to come back home. Now, you have to understand, I had no intention of ever returning to Michigan. When I graduated at 18, I went off to school in a completely different city. And I had no intention of ever returning to Michigan for any reason. But she was right. I was floundering. I was a mess again. And here I am. He's thrown in prison. It's almost like somebody dying. It was like the whole earth was ripped out from under my feet. And so I had the opportunity to move back to Michigan, and the job allowed me to transfer. Now, in doing that transfer, I found out later that the supervisor where I transferred to had no intention of me being there in the first place. So that when I come up talking about I wanted to transfer, her supervisor said that he had a position in that field office for me. And she was upset and didn't like me because she didn't want me. She wanted somebody else. She was setting up for somebody else to take it. So when I got there, I was, let's put it like this, I was in boot camp for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was boot camp because I had to learn how to shut up, listen up, and suck it up 100 times instead of fighting back. Whether that was necessary or not, I always had a chip on my shoulder. I didn't know anybody else saw that chip but me. So I come in there with this combative demeanor, and she didn't want me in the first place. So I just couldn't do any right. I couldn't do any right. I came in there, I learned the job, I was getting it done. I was getting it done effectively and efficiently. And where everybody else was dragging behind, I had gotten to the swing of things. So she didn't like that. So I would have to sit there and watch everybody else get an award, and every time she would pass me over. This is how it would go. She set up for all of them to get all of these awards and everything, and we would all be called to the middle of the room, and she would give out awards and give them their accolades, and time after time I would get ignored completely. Now, that was tough on me, and I had even white people tell me that the way I was being treated was discriminatory and that I needed to file a grievance. And frankly, the Lord told me, you're not going to file another grievance. So what you had to understand is I never lost a grievance. If I filed a grievance, it was going to be won. But he told me, nope, I had to shut up, suck it up, and listen up because it was stuff that he was trying to work out of me. Nobody liked me. They'd rather see and watch me make mistakes than to tell me how to do it right. No matter how hard I worked and how well I worked, it was going to get ignored over and over again. All of that fed into this boot camp I was in to heal from a bunch of stuff in the past. And all of that trauma was seeping through my personality, seeping through me, so that I walked in there into the lion's den. But I walked in with pork chop drawers on because I had this chip on my shoulder. I began to grow. I was a labor management leader. That required me to do a lot of growing emotionally, get some emotional intelligence, and the Lord would back me down every time I felt that trauma just taking over me. And it ended up with me in a position where people of management from the top all the way to Washington, D.C., down to our regional office, really liked me. Go figure, okay? But the Lord had worked so much out of me in this boot camp and in this adversarial culture I was sitting in that it grew me to the point where I was able to be highly effective and build relationships and a partnership. Because when I came in, I had this meeting, and boy, did they give me an earful. The TLDR is that they felt that our union was in bed with management and that they were getting sold out left and right by the union doing backdoor deals with management. So now they don't trust management, they don't trust the union. And by the time I got through hearing these war stories, there was nothing I could do other than to say, okay, I've heard all of you, and this is where I'm drawing the line. I can't change all that, but I've got a no tolerance policy against that mess going forward. And if you see anything like that, then you need to tell me and I will handle it. But this is what I say that I'm going to do going forward. Long story short, what it wound up with is I developed a relationship with management, not only in the DC area, but also with the local management. And we began to work in partnership. There was no more adversarial positioning at the bargaining table. We were able to talk things out. Yet we disagreed, but I had grown and healed so much from my trauma that I was able to keep that in check enough to build these relationships with management. And by the time I left, it took me less than 3 years to turn that adversarial labor management culture into one of partnership. And it was a wonderful thing. So I was enjoying all of that. but it's what happened next that changed everything. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and hype this video. Thanks. So we had a situation. So basically, what I was doing is, if you see on TV where a retailer or a store was taken out of the SNAP program because of violations, that's what I did. I did that. I did audits. We just pretty much oversaw all of the nutrition assistance program, of which SNAP was one of them. So I had this case where this person was being disqualified, but it was complicated. The ownership was complicated because the store had been put into a receivership. So the question becomes, who owned the store? Can we legally hold the current owner responsible for the prior owner's actions? I dug into this thing. I spent a week or two digging in and trying to understand the legalities of a receivership. Who owns the store at that point, or does nobody own the store? So anyway, I go through that complicated thing. I get it all figured out, right? I write this thing up to submit so that he could say, this is what I found out about receivership. And so under these circumstances, I don't believe that this disqualification would hold up. Now, I was used to, when I was at the other agency, we had a team of lawyers on board, so that if we had any kind of ownership issues with respect to properties, etc., we would just throw it up to legal, and they would make the determination and tell us what it was. We didn't have that in the current job that I was in. We didn't have that. There was nobody to take this to figure it out. They threw that back in my face. It's back to, no, you think too much. You're too smart. I can't acknowledge your brain power. And they told me, whatever, but we're not in a position to make that determination. Excuse me? We better be in a position to make that determination, because we can do something illegal here. I would think that you would appreciate my doing the legwork and presenting everything to you so that you can understand why I'm not going to disqualify this store. Just pushed it back at me. It didn't matter then. That was nothing to push that back at me, instead of appreciating the work I did. So that was one of the straws on the camel back that happened when the next thing happened, that led me to say, oh, I want to cuss. I want to cuss. You know what I'm saying? I'll just say, let me say, forget it. You use another F word, you fill in the blanks. So, hey, that was all there was. Now, what happened after that? Picture it. It's a hot July day. I stumble out of bed, brush my teeth and everything, and come into my office. I was working from home. Sit at my desk. Okay, we're going to go to another one of these days where I'm pushing paper. I had been fed up with the paper pushing for quite a while as well. But I just got used to it. My sister kept telling me, Linda, you need to just quit. You need to just quit. You need to just quit. I'm over here saying, no, I want to pay this off, pay this off. I got to get this done. I want to get this done before I leave the agency. So I wasn't hearing nothing she was saying for 2 whole years. Now, let me help you understand what this means. Now, I, at this point, was working for a supervisor who was in another state. And because they had closed all the field offices, many of us worked from home. We had that choice because I made sure that the union negotiated for them to have a choice. Do you want to go to another office and work, or do you want to work from home? Well, naturally, many of us chose working from home. So, but this supervisor was the kind of guy that, I don't be playing the race card, okay? That just ain't even in my DNA. I'm going to go through a whole list of some crap that must be wrong that I need to fix before I be playing the race card. But it became harder and harder for me to overlook this guy. Now, I had been getting superior or outstanding annual performance reviews for years, well over a decade. I mean, I got two outstandings in 1 year at one point. Okay, now they say you got to walk on water to get one. I got two in 1 year. And this guy was upset with me because the year before he tried to mark me down in a certain element of that annual review. And I decided, I don't think that's right. And so I tried to talk to him about it. He wasn't hearing it. Well, you made a mistake here because I'm union president and I stand on the same level with your supervisors in D.C. Because of the position I hold. I never played that card. I never took advantage of that, but he was not being reasonable. So I took it to his supervisor. And his supervisor agreed with me that he had mismarked that element and it resulted in my receiving an outstanding evaluation that year. That stuff stuck in this man's craw. He was not happy with me. And so every day I worked after that, this man was sticking in the knife and turning it. The littlest things that he could nitpick about my work, he was trying to nitpick that. There's nobody that doesn't have maybe a little typo here, maybe something needs to be said differently there, which was the whole point of all of us putting all of our letters through this supervisor. But he wants to dig in the knife. I had enough. I opened up my email that day down here in this office, and oh my goodness, this joker had said the wrong thing for the umpteenth time to the wrong person. I didn't want to hear him nitpicking my work another day. He was wrong in doing it, and I could tell he was being petty, and he was trying to set me up to get a poor review. And I just wasn't going to have it. Just because he got something stuck in his craw, you know what I did? I ain't say nothing. I don't think I even replied to the email. What I did do was contact the personnel office in D.C. and say, I'm out of here, work up my retirement papers. And I intentionally didn't tell him. Now, at some point in this process, he was going to have to sign these papers. But to me, that's soon enough for his behind to know I was out of here. So I just let it go. By the end of that day, now, you got to understand, like I told you, I came in here planning I wasn't going to retire for about 5 more years. Opened up my computer that morning at 8:30. By 11:30, all my papers were prepared. I'm out of here. And I wasn't going to say nothing to him. This joke had nerve called me. Oh, I hope it's not what I said that pushed you to do this. Yes, yeah, it was. It was everything you said. Yes, it was. I'll call him Al because I don't want to say his real name. So yes, Al, it was something you said. I wasn't biting my words. I said, I am not going to have my performance downgraded unjustly. And I'm tired of this fight, so I'm out of here. So I set my retirement date for 2 weeks out. I was out of there. So I'm mailing back equipment and computers, closing out stuff, filling out this and that. I wasn't going to turn back. It wasn't worth the fight anymore. Okay? To me, it wasn't worth the fight anymore. I wasn't enjoying my work anyway. It just got to the point where I was just pushing paper. Now, what happened after that? Freedom. Okay? I was working on a doctorate that I had been working on for 10 years. Okay? Had gone through everything, ready to do the dissertation. Life went the heck in a handbasket. Got to tell you that story later. And didn't go back for a couple of years. And when I went back, they wouldn't let me finish that PhD. Okay? No, you got to start all over again. What? So I want to get this doctorate, so I had to play their game. So what I did was transferred everything that I could into the DSW that I was working on. And so it was getting down to the wire because I was in the writing process and I didn't need this dang distraction of this job. I didn't have the bandwidth for that doctoral program and this crazy mess. So I had freedom. I could focus on this July of 2017 when I retired, before my full retirement age. Let the chips fall where they may, okay? And it was 2 years of nose to the grindstone from there before I finally finished my doctorate. So it freed me up. So the other thing that it did was it put me in a position where all of my academic training could be put to some orchestrated use, because having let me see, my bachelor's is in organizational leadership. My master's is in advanced clinical practice. That's a master's of social work. And my doctorate is a doctorate in social work with a concentration in criminology. So in criminal justice. So what of that had, none of that got a thing to do with food stamps or nutrition assistance programs. So it was a complete trajectory change for me. Now, I'm grateful for that, because now I'm in a position where I can truly use the things that I've been trained in to help others. I don't have to be living a double freaking life like I was going in here and, shoveling papers 8-10 hours a day. And then I was going to, well, I wrote a whole book while I was working. I got all my degrees while I was working, and the DSW was half finished by then. So what it did was it gave me a lot of freedom. Now, I know that this is not hasn't aged well with so many people losing their jobs and everything. I get that. If all of this stuff that's going on now had been going on back then, I don't know, maybe I would have made a different decision. No, don't tell that lie. Your butt would have, I wasn't going to make no different decision, just so y'all know, okay? I mean, I cut myself short. When you retire, you lose so much. You look for a percentage of, you might be a salary up here, and then once you retired, then you go down here. But hey, the chips just fell in me. I have no regrets for what I did. Period. Full stop. What it did was allowed me to lean into my calling, lean into my purpose, and make some sense of all of the training that I got in the meantime. Right? So I'm just wondering, everybody's got to make their own decisions. I get that. I'm just saying that's why I quit and have no regrets behind it. I'm wondering, do you feel disjointed from the things you're doing every day in your career and what something's telling you is your main purpose on earth? I'm just wondering if anybody else has ever been there. Now, I bet you this. I'm not even going to ask y'all this. I know that many of us have had supervisors that were pains in the behind. And I know many of us have been in situations where they felt like they were unappreciated. I know that there are situations where people felt like that they weren't being utilized to their full capacity. I know there's a lot of that out there, but a lot of that you need to go through. You know what? I wouldn't change anything, not even having that job, because that job got me through. When I had nervous breakdown number 2, which is another story, my supervisor got behind me, that very same supervisor who was adversarial and didn't want me around and was mistreating me, that once I changed, our whole relationship got better. It wasn't about her. It was about allowing myself to work through my trauma so that I could see clearly and be more effective, be more approachable, be more humble, right? And that woman supported me through some hellacious times just before I got my divorce. Even in the trenches, there's purpose to be found. Even in the trenches, if you allow it, there's growth to be had. Even in the trenches, you can work through trauma and come out of it an even better, more fulfilled person. So I just encourage all of you to remember that, the important thing is getting through our healing so that we can see who we truly are, lean into that power, and live a victorious life. Always remember your greatest power is realized in the truth of who you are. Know that truth.